Rieke. I'm a NASA pilot. The shuttle carrier aircraft 747 behind us. I'll be taking Endeavour up to Washington. Rieke.
So Bill, tell us a little bit of what you're planning to do and
The next couple days we'll be taking the 747, moving it into this contraption right here where the Discovery will be painted onto the 747. I believe that'll be done by Sunday. We'll have more press come out. Once it's all made, it will be pushed back. And Tuesday we'll be getting ready to launch out of here, take it up to Washington D.C. to the Hazy Museum, where we land at, which is just south of the Dulles Airport, and drop it off there. At that point, we'll take it up, take it off, put Enterprise on it, and bring Enterprise up to New York to the Intrepid Sea, Air, and Space Museum.
tell me about weather conditions. What are your concerns?
Actually, we are concerned about this. The shuttle tiles are not good in rain. It will damage the shuttle tiles, and we want to give them to the museum in a good condition. So if we avoid the rain, because it'll damage the tiles, we avoid any significant weather, even if it's just clouds. We'd rather not fly through clouds for obvious reasons, or raindrops and all that. And turbulence. We want to avoid turbulence.
So what are the conditions that you need to, what are the conditions you need to have in order to fly, in order to get this going?
Clear clouds. We need to be clear clouds when we fly. Essentially, we would rather not fly down at 1,000 feet to stay beneath the weather. For obvious reasons, it would just be so fuel inefficient. But we'll get down probably around 3,000 foot ceilings or so that we're able to get beneath it, yet still see the airport and land safely.
Can you tell us like what kind of wind speeds you need, or?
Right, we have a crosswind limit of, which is probably the worst case scenario, of 20 knots, because the orbiter's on it. We will obviously want to keep it safe. Wind speed, probably headwind of about 30 knots or so. It's definitely a plane that you don't want to mess around with in the wind, so 20 knots is the limit, which is still pretty hefty considering the plane to fly.
So would you say if there's even some clouds, it's going to be stretched?
No, not at all. We can certainly get around it. We fly with the NASA C9 aircraft, where it precedes us by about 30 minutes. It'll tell us what the weather looks like, and will tell us to either turn left, climb, descend, or adjust our path as appropriate to avoid the weather, so that we can go around it and continue our mission.
So what are the basic conditions?
Clear clouds. And if we have a field where we're landing at 3,000 foot ceiling, that are clear beneath that, that's probably going to be a good opportunity for us to go.
And if there's any rain, any at all?
If there's rain in the area where we're landing, probably will not go.
If we've had fog conditions in the last couple days, what about that?
Here?
Yes.
I would say no, because of the moisture in the area could damage the tiles.
And then how long would it take if something were to happen? Like when would you guys make the transition?
When would we take off in the weather? That's a
Yeah.
very good question. We'd have to wait to see what the weather forecasters say and go from there. I wouldn't know what the weather would be doing.
What if there's a problem over in D.C.?
Well, that's what I'm really concerned about. I'm not too concerned about here in Florida because it's such awesome weather here. But up in D.C. is have to wait and see. That's why we briefed the weather Sunday night. I think we can take a look at the weather now, and it's something we need to take a look at.
So on Sunday is when you'll know.
We'll get a good first guess about what we're going to go on.
But on Monday you could say no.
We could say all the way up to the day we take off, we're not going to do it, right?
Talk a little bit about giving people a view of the flight, what you're doing, flying over the beaches, what are the plans there?
Plans around here are going to be one heck of a whifferdale. We are giving you the best show that we can. It's going to go over the visitor center, go up and down the beach, go fly over the runway. There's going to be quite a few opportunities to view it. It's going to be taken off at the break of dawn. So if there's any opportunity to see it, it's going to have to wake up bright and early. Set your alarm early.
Now, you've probably done that before. Have you flown over the beaches? Is that in your experience?
Yes, absolutely.
Can you talk about what it looks like from your perspective? I'm sure you can see a lot of people. You can tell they're excited. Your flying pretty low, right?
Right. Well, not that low, but low enough so that we're safe to fly. It's pretty awesome to be able to look down and see crowds down there. Now, it's not an air show, so you don't typically draw that many crowds. So you see this short area. It's a wide swath of trees up on that down center area. There's a lot of people flying around. It's pretty nice looking down there, but we're all little people.
Are you sorry to see this part of your career coming to an end?
Yes, I wouldn't call this my career. I look at this as a NASA portion of it, and that it is sad to see go. It's such a tremendous vehicle, not just the 747, but the space shuttle. To see that capability go away, I hate to see the brain drain leave NASA. I hope we move on to something else that we can continue with NASA to keep that good quality engineer, good quality scientist, astronaut corps, to pilots, to flight engineers. All those people I will be disappointed to see if they continue to go. And that, I think, is the most disappointing part for us, is for all of us in NASA to see that.
Now, as far as a piloting task, flying the orbiter with the SCA, how would you rate that? Is it real exciting, difficult? Is it routine, boring? What is it?
Well, I think y'all make it pretty exciting, but it is pretty neat because it's not something that's done very often. Just a handful of people have done it. I think it's pretty exciting because knowing that you can have such a unusual aircraft, experimental, when you fly this thing. I like it. It's good.
How does it feel? Does it communicate through the plane that you've got a gigantic orbiter on your back?
It is, as you can imagine, with something as a piggyback, if you carry your kid and you try and turn left or bend over, you're going to get the little, holy crap, you got to catch your balance. Same thing with this thing. If you roll left or right, you're going to get that feeling of, oh, it wants to continue rolling. Nothing absolutely dangerous, but you can feel it. Nothing unusual, and nothing that you can't counter. Try and maintain our angle bank.
Thanks for the touch.
It's a 747. McDonnell Douglas did now Boeing did a fantastic job build this plane, and I absolutely love this plane. It's a sporty plane to fly. It's sporty in the sense of a big airplane. It's very well handled. It's great to fly. It takes a good vehicle in order to fly this around.
Bill, can you make a comment about what appears to be the profiles of airplanes next to the door? What do those represent?
Those represent the times that, the number of times that this plane has carried Pacific Shuttle on its back. And it's not per leg, so it's not actually one flight from Edwards or wherever it landed all over the state. It's several flights that make it all the way back to the same flight. And that's what they count all of it. So look at it, and some of us went, holy cow, I don't know why that makes sense. Number of flights,
Where do you go?
well, we will be well briefed prior to that to know if we're going to be able to make it. If there's any doubt whatsoever, we probably won't go.
And
We're not concerned, too concerned about that.
any difference between carrying Discovery to DC, and then I guess you're gonna pick up Enterprise and take that to New York. So any significant difference in those two craft that are going to affect the way the plane moves?
No, not that I'm aware of, not that I've been told or briefed. There's a slight weight difference, a little lighter for Enterprise, of course, less pods on there, but not that much.
Tell me a little bit about your training. How did you qualify to do this job?
To fly the 747, I'll talk about, to get qualified in that, you have to get the standard qualification from the 747 trainer, which is a very intense 4 to 5 week program you fly. Every pilot who gets qualified in the 747 goes through this type rating qualification, and it's not easy. It's the old school method of teaching. They want you to know everything about the plane, and you do know everything about the plane when you're done. So you go through that process first to get qualified in 747. Once you get qualified in that, then you take a ride in this plane, and then get some training rides in this with the people who have done it before, and they tell you the handling characteristics. When you get to fly an orbiter, again, you get briefed on it. They get fly with someone in the right seat. We've done it before. We can be there for you if necessary.
And so there are, what, 3 pilots here or 6 pilots? Looking at the names on the...
Right now there are just 2 pilots
okay,
here.
2. And so are you both going to be on the plane when it makes this trip to DC?
Yes.
And will both of the flight engineers be on as well?
Both the flight engineers will be on, yes. Those are 2 really good guys.
And what happens to this vehicle when all the shuttles are in place and that's it? What happens?
What a sad thing. It goes back to Palmdale, California, where it sits probably next to 9/11, which was the other shuttle carrier aircraft, and may be used for what other purposes that NASA sees fit right now. It could be used for to help with the SOFIA program. They may have other missions they want to do with this thing, which I know there's some thoughts out there, but I think that the maintenance cost of this is so high that people may start backing off of something of those missions.
And what's going to happen to you? Are you going to stay at NASA? Are you going to leave, or you haven't decided, or you're waiting for a better offer, or what?
You know, NASA is obviously to use the word downsizing a bit since the shuttle program has gone away. However, where I live over in Houston at the NASA Aviation Operations Division, there's a bunch of aircraft that fly over there as well, and I'm qualified in 3 other aircraft. So this is one of the 4 aircraft that will be going away that I fly, which is a shame because it is such a good aircraft. I really like flying this. I will miss it, but there are 3 other aircraft that can continue to fly, so I'm not too worried about that.
And what other craft would you be flying?
T-38, Gulfstream 3, and a WB-57.
Thank you.
So I'm sure, I hope I'm not making you repeat too much, but have you discussed a little bit the difference in flying, you know, with an orbiter on the back versus, or even just with flying an SCA, given all the internal differences it has versus a typical 747, maybe a passenger model?
Right. My experience with 747 is on this one empty, or this one mated with a shuttle. So I can't speak to the passenger version, but they're not much different. This is the 747-100, an early version of it. It flies very well designed, very well. The control laws on this are great. Just a very good flying airplane. With the orbiter on back, I will say one thing that is very noticeable right off the get-go, and that is it is loud. In the back, when you go inside, and which we can do that after this, we can go take a tour inside, is you'll see it's empty. We've stripped down all the inside. If you've seen it before, these pictures of it, that when it's on there, when the orbiter's on there, it is extremely loud, and you cannot go back there without hearing protection or fingers in your ear or something.
Really? And how about just as far as handling in flight? I mean, what do you do differently to give the extra load?
Handling is very good. I would say that the one thing I do differently on the airplane when we fly is you want to keep power on as you land test, because if you take power off, it's so heavy, we're not used to that weight typically, it'll land hard quickly if you take the power off, and typically that's what we do without it. Take the power off right above, just before we touch down, and differently we'll keep it on as we land to ensure it's smoother landing.
And what's it like, you know, in this role, obviously, especially for these upcoming flights, you're doing flyovers of, I mean, certainly DC will be a very unique one. I'm sure you've done it here on the beach before, and you have crowds of people watching.
Right.
What's that like when you're sort of touring low over these historic places, and then also you have thousands of people that are maybe people from nowhere looking up at Iowa, watching you. Are you aware of that?
We're aware of it, like I said, because of you guys, but we don't spend a whole lot of time looking outside the window simply because we focus on the inside flying the airplane and keeping it done safely. We're focusing on make sure we don't overspeed anything. We're proper altitude to make the turns in a proper direction. But when you do take a look outside the window, you'll occasionally catch a glance of that and see the people down there. Yeah, and when we're up and around DC, I like to say I'll be looking out the window the entire time as a tourist, but that's not going to happen. I'll be looking out there occasionally, but the focus will be on inside the airplane, talk on the radios, make sure we're operating correctly as a crew, make sure it's done safely and correctly.
What do you think of any added emotion when you touch down, knowing that the last time Discovery makes a landing like that?
I think so. I think everyone at NASA will be a bit sad knowing that that's the last time we'll touch it down. The way we are now, I understand that. I'm just doing what NASA tells me.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Can you talk about, I see the aft ball mounts are not on yet. Can you talk about the work that remains in the next couple of days to get ready to go?
Yeah, right now, as you can see, they're taking stuff out of the bay. They're taking some of those ball joints out right now. They're also taking out some of the joints that are necessary to mate it for this contraption as well. And so that's all that's going on today. They're going to mount that. Hopefully, they'll mount that ball on there today to get that completely done. They're just pulling it out right now. So you can see it's almost 9:15 in the morning. They're just taking it out right now. That's going to be the process for today. Tomorrow, I'm not sure what's going to happen tomorrow. Let's say Thursday. Friday, from what I understand, they're going to back up this airplane, bring in the orbiter, so they can put it up here, and then Saturday they're going to soft mount it, apparently. I'm sorry, Friday they're going to soft mount it. Saturday they're going to put it on. Probably not good for recording purposes, huh? Good? So they get run over on camera, huh? So soft mounted Saturday, from what I understand, and then Sunday mounted completely, back and away Sunday. Have you guys come back out again, take some pictures, ask questions, and go ahead for the briefs on Sunday and get ready for lunch. Right? Watch the weather, make sure we can take off.
You talk about, you talk about soft made, hard made. What's the difference between? When they put the orbiter on, are they going to let the weight down on the 747 when you get the soft made, or is it made first and then you release the weight from the sling to the 747? And do you know what the difference is?
That's a very good question. I would have to ask my maintenance guy. I would have to ask the people who do the maintenance facility. When I talk to them, that's what they told me.
Okay.
So I understand that it's about a 3-hour, 40-minute flight with all the flyovers and so forth. Is that about the maximum for a piggyback flight, or what is the maximum?
That's a very long flight, I would say. That it's based on how much the orbiter weighs, the winds, and how high we go. So yeah, it's a significant leg length. I would say that was the orbiter on top. There's no doubt about that. Not to mention the fact that we're doing flyovers down here, flyovers up in DC. It's a long run.
You only have so much fuel, right? Given the extra weight, that burns quite a bit of extra fuel.
Absolutely. Yeah, it burns I would be guessing percentage-wise, but it's significantly more with the orbiter on top. There's no doubt about it. Yeah.
You talk about, I think when I was looking at you on FlightAware yesterday, you were flying like 25,000 feet, 300, 400 knots. Can you talk about comparing that to what you're going to be flying with the orbiter on top next week?
Yeah, when we flew out here yesterday, we had a nice tailwind going, so we were cruising along. We felt like a normal jet. We're limited at 250 knots.
Okay.
Because the tip pins on there limit that for structural reasons. With the orbiter on board, we're limited that as well. When we fly with the orbiter on board, we don't fly up to 25,000 feet. Excuse me, we're unable to fly that high, so we fly down lower altitudes, in which case it's higher fuel flow and slower speed, obviously. So you're not going to see the FlightAware type performance that you focus on. Excuse me.
What would be the ceiling with an orbiter on top?
It depends on temperature. We'll go 15,000 feet probably is what the highest you'll see on something for us. I don't know which way to go.
Are there any, have the flight rules changed at all? You're carrying essentially an inert orbiter compared to, orbiter usually has power requirements, and like you're talking about temperature requirements in terms of keeping, there's usually fluids, other things that need to be maintained in a certain temperature band. Are you going to change any of the flight rules for this, or is it just going to operate it as if it was a normal return and admission type of thing?
We're going to operate as if the orbiter was on a diet, because it has lost weight.
Okay.
Taken out some of the ohms pods and some of the engines. Some of the engines were taken out. So yeah, there's nothing significantly different from sitting in the cockpit flying the airplane. We will no longer apply electrical power to it to maintain some heat on the fuel cells. So those are some differences, but it's lighter. That makes it easier for us to go a little farther if we need to carry more gas.
Do you happen to know what the advertised weight of the orbiter is going to be for you for this flight?
Endeavour believes, as a guess, don't quote me on this, it's going to be around 160-ish, 160,000 pounds, right around
I was
there.
told it was 162 at rollout, for the DAB. I don't know if that helps, but actually hasn't changed.
Yeah.
It's on our paperwork, so when we take a look at the data for the aircraft to see what they have in there and the orbiter, it's just another payload that we take a look at the weight and see what it looks like. So it'll have it on there, so off the top of my head, that sounds about right. Okay. Thanks.
Aside from the flyovers, which are quite low at the beginning and the end, just generally speaking, the average person, if you're just flying up the coast or wherever, who might see you flying overhead at 15,000 feet, will they have a pretty good view of an orbiter as well, or will you just be sort of a speck up there?
Oh no, we will not be quite low. We will be at a very safe altitude, approved by the airport area. Take a look at all the obstacles in the area, so we will do it safely. There's no doubt about that. Even if we were pretty darn high, it is not a speck. It's a big airplane, and you will definitely be able to see where it is. I don't know if you can read the numbers on the orbiter itself, but yeah, you'll be able to see a lot. It'll be awesome.
Down your route, basically.
Just around here. Now, if you're talking en route to,
If you're over North Carolina or something, will people have anything to see there?
probably not. That would be a speck if you were to see. Yeah, I thought you meant around there. Yeah, that'll be tough to see. We'll be low, but in fact, you may look up and be able to see us from the ground, but you'd have to know that we're there to see us.